We are going to hop right in today and talk about the signs of knowing if you're dealing with a narcissist. This is going to be a pivotal moment for you where you're finally going to discover if you are in an abusive relationship, whether it's with a romantic partner, a work partner, someone in your family, a friendship. We're going to dial it all in today so you can have knowledge be your power. When you're dealing with someone who might be a narcissist, there are some pretty telling signs that can give you a clue. And so I want you to look for the clues. One of the biggest clues that you're dealing with a narcissist is the grandiosity that they have. Like, they think that they are God. They think that literally the universe revolves around them. And one of the reasons that this is because they have this insatiable void, this desire within them that can never be filled. There's never going to be enough people to make them feel better. At the very root of narcissism is a lack of self-worth. See, on the outside, they project that they're God, that they deserve special treatment, that they should be able to have these amazing things above everybody else. But at the root of it is actually zero self-worth. They hate themselves. And because the pain of understanding that is too much, they wear a mask. See, narcissism is created in childhood from some traumatic event or trauma that went untreated for long periods of time. And you might be saying, oh, well, the narcissist I know never had any trauma. They had the most amazing childhood. But that is not so simple. It's not that black and white. Trauma is perceived by our nervous system in many different ways. And someone could be sitting next to you and have a severe traumatic event, and you would never know it because their nervous system perceived it as such and yours did not. In fact, there are research and studies that are coming out that talk about 100 soldiers having gone into war, and 80 of those soldiers come out with zero PTSD. The 20 that have PTSD had childhood trauma. Not saying that all of them are narcissists, but I think that's an important study to talk about here because childhood trauma does not mean that you will develop narcissistic personality disorder. However, everyone that has narcissistic personality disorder had some form of childhood trauma. And then it's developed in adolescence and early adulthood so that when they are an adult, they do have narcissistic personality disorder. So they like to think that they're at the center of the universe. Have you ever come across someone who just seems like they're always boasting about themselves, their achievements, how amazing they are? That's a classic trait. It doesn't necessarily mean that everyone that's proud of themselves and their achievements is a narcissist, but this is one of many qualities that a narcissist is going to exhibit. Empathy. They are never gonna have that. Narcissists are always missing empathy. It's like they have this blind spot for other people's feelings and needs. You could be pouring your heart out to them and they just don't seem to get it. They just think it's all about them all the time. And if you're sitting here and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I do that, maybe I'm a narcissist, I made a video for you that you can go hit the subscribe button on and find that talks about what should you do if you think you're the narcissist. And there's a whole step of things that you can do in order to know if you are a narcissist and also what to do if you're thinking that. So a narcissist is always going to be all about them all the time. Entitlement is another big one. And some people will say, oh, narcissists were just spoiled in childhood. And while some narcissists may have been spoiled in childhood, that's not the only indicator of a narcissist. They always act like they are owed something, like the world should revolve around them. And it's not just about wanting nice things. It's about feeling like they deserve special treatment at the expense of others. That's the key with the narcissist. If you're someone that just likes nice things and you like to have beautiful vacations and you want to have a fancy bag and a fancy car, that doesn't necessarily make you a narcissist. But if you have those things at the expense of others, that's where we're looking at narcissistic personality disorder. You can see this quality in people like Hitler, for example. He had this lavish life at the expense of millions of Jewish people dying. And so you can see how that's a perfect example of someone who clearly had narcissistic personality disorder, although I'm not here to diagnose anyone. That is one of the best examples where you can see that he had so much at the expense of others. So if you like nice things, it's not that it's at the expense of others, right? That's the key here. And let's talk about manipulation, because the narcissist is the master at manipulation. They'll charm you, they'll manipulate situations and use whatever tricks they can to get what they want. And it's all about control for them. Criticism, forget about it. They can't handle it. Even the slightest hint of criticism sends them into a tailspin. It's like they have this fragile ego that can't handle any kind of challenge of their greatness. They don't ever say, "Tell me what you really think," meaning that. When they say, "Tell me what you really think," they just want you to tell them all the most amazing things about them. They cannot handle criticism. Jealousy and envy, they often rear their ugly heads too. They can't stand it when someone else gets the spotlight or achieves something great. Instead of being happy for others, they get bitter and resentful. And boundaries, yeah, they don't really get those either. They will trample all over your boundaries that you set without a second thought. It's like they think they're entitled to invade your space or manipulate you however they want. You may set a boundary with family time. If they're a work colleague or your boss, you may say, "I'm not available on Sundays. I'm unreachable." And then they will, on purpose, have emergencies that have to be handled on Sunday. This is because, number one, the narcissist wants to completely control and manipulate you and have all these emergencies that they need to control, but also they're not going to be respective of boundaries because they have no empathy. They could give two beeps about your boundaries because they have no empathy. So if they think that they are entitled to invade your space, they're going to manipulate it however they want. It's so difficult dealing with somebody like this, but recognizing these signs can help you navigate the situation. Setting boundaries are something that protect your own peace. So I want to teach you how to set a boundary because most people have this wrong. See, most people think that boundaries is you controlling someone else. And I'll tell you right now, you're never going to be able to control the narcissist. In fact, the more you try to control them, the more they're going to push back and have big outbursts and make a scene. So when you set a boundary, it's to protect your own peace, not to control them. For example, you're going to make a request and then you're going to have a consequence. That's what a boundary has. It's a two-part thing with a request and a consequence that you can control that makes sense, okay? So here's an example of a boundary that's not a boundary, okay? A boundary would say, okay, I am not going to sit here anymore while you scream at me. And then you're in a car driving with them and you don't have the ability to get out of the car. That's gonna feed the narcissist ego. It's going to show them that they have control over you. In fact, what they're going to do in that situation is likely belittle you and abuse you more. They're going to say things to you like, "I can't even believe that you would ever suggest you could never get away from me. You're so worthless." Like, they'll do that emotional abuse to you where they are beating you up for the very boundary that you're trying to make. And also say this, because I think that boundaries are so misunderstood in the narcissistic abuse community especially, and that is that the narcissist doesn't need to know that you have a boundary with them. For example, one of the boundaries that I really felt gave me so much peace and freedom was going completely no contact with the person abusing me. That means blocking them on social media, email, phone, and any other way that they could find you. Not even going to events where you know they're going to be at. That is complete no contact, right? So that's a boundary that you might want to set, is no contact. For example, if they're going to be there, I'm not going to go. Now, you don't need to tell people to not invite them to things. You just have a personal boundary within yourself that if they're going to be there, you're not going to inflict that pain, that triggering, that trauma response on yourself. You're not going to go there. And you don't have to tell anyone about that, because what I found is when I would tell people that, they would say, oh, don't let that person control you like that. Don't let them ruin your life. It's not about that. It's not about them controlling you. It's not about them having power over you. It's about your personal peace and how you decide to control your environment so that you can have a nervous system that can be at rest. It's when your nervous system is constantly in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that you are constantly producing adrenaline and cortisol. And your body was never made to have adrenaline and cortisol running through your veins 24/7. Your fight, flight, and freeze response are the 3 trauma responses that you were born with. And God gave them to you so that you would survive in situations where it perceives a threat. In narcissistic abuse, you are constantly in fight, flight, freeze. And fawn, the 4th trauma response, where you people please, walking on eggshells to try to avoid future abuse. So you're constantly pumping adrenaline and cortisol. The pharmacy inside of your brain is just constantly going. And God made your body so that it doesn't have that drug running through it at all times. It was supposed to be an instant of adrenaline and cortisol, so you could run away from the bear, hide from the lion, avoid the rock, the boulder that was gonna fall on you outside of the cave. It was never meant to be constant fight, flight, freeze, adrenaline and cortisol running through your body. And so putting boundaries in place so that your nervous system can be at rest and it can catch its breath, that is what I want for you. That's what I want you to experience. And so going no contact is a great way to set a boundary, and you don't have to tell anyone that you're doing it. You can just make up an excuse for why you can't come. And there's nothing wrong with not being totally honest with people why you can't come. Make up an excuse. Say you don't feel well. Say you can't come. It's okay. Not everyone's gonna understand your boundaries. And it doesn't mean that you're lying or that you're dishonest. It just means that you have a boundary, that you are protecting your own peace. And that is what is best for your mental well-being and your physical health, because we want to have more downtime for your nervous system to heal and repair. Another way to go no contact is extreme modified no contact. This might be a boundary that you have if you have a child with a narcissist, or maybe a work environment where you don't want to leave your job. So it might look like you having modifications of no contact, where maybe you only open up the work email at this time on this day, but not after this time. Maybe you only check the work phone on these specific times, so that your nervous system knows that it's gonna be triggered in those times and you're ready for it. You're like, bring it on, let's go. But the other times of the day, you know that you can be at peace because you're gonna have it in do not disturb. You're not gonna open that email. You're not gonna have to respond to any of these badgering messages from the narcissist or whatever it may be. If you have an ex-spouse that you have children with, it's looking at the phone and the email to arrange pickup and drop off, and then having no contact with them in between so that your nervous system can be at rest. It's so hard to deal with people like this because they're so manipulative, and they lack empathy, and they really want to have a better life at your expense. But I hope that hearing these signs and these ways that have helped me gain my life back after narcissistic abuse, setting these boundaries, prioritizing your own well-being, and seeking support from others, they are crucial when you're dealing with narcissistic abuse. And I just want to instill with you, you are not a victim of narcissistic abuse. You are a survivor. Empower yourself. You have made it. Even if you're still in the abusive relationship right now, you are a survivor because you're sitting here and you are alive and you're showing up today. And so I just want to give you the biggest virtual hug of love and support sending your way, because I know how hard it is to be suffering from narcissistic abuse and the aftermath of narcissistic abuse. So I hope that you will learn something here from me. and that you'll be a part of this community in whatever way serves you. My whole heart and soul, I know the heartbreak of narcissistic abuse, and I know that you have the power within you to break free. Only people that are strong put up with narcissistic abuse. You are not weak, you are strong. And that means that you have the power to leave when you know the time is right. Have an amazing day. Bye now.